Cameroon, a single coin, a single treasury. One sits in leather, on the other side, a nurse. One coin, two sides, one economy. Across the same country, millions go to work.
Cameroon, a nation of 28 million souls. A single treasury. A single coin. Two living standards. On one side of this coin, a member of parliament sits in leather. Climate controlled. Staffed. Pensioned. Protected. He debates laws that shape your life. He goes home to a dinner that costs more than your monthly rent. And the state thanks him for his service. On the other side, a nurse. A midwife. A lab technician. She holds your newborn while her own child is sick at home with no money for the pharmacy. She draws your blood with a syringe that may carry her own. She watches you die because the oxygen tank is empty. And the state pays her for her service. This is Cameroon, the pay-slip war. And by the end of this film, you will know exactly what your government thinks your life is worth. Let me be clear about what this film is, and what it is not. This is not about doctors. Doctors have their own battles. Their own salaries. Their own struggles. This film is about the people doctors depend on. The people you depend on before you ever see a doctor. Nurses. Midwives. Laboratory technicians. The front line of the front line. The people who touch your body when you are most vulnerable. The people who hold your secrets in test tubes. The people who decide whether your mother gets the last bed or is sent home to die. And on the other side of this war, the politicians. Members of parliament. Senators. Ministers. The people who write the budgets. The people who approve the salaries. The people who look at these two groups and say, this is fair. This is just. This is what you deserve. Every number you will hear is from public records. Parliamentary reports. International bodies. Salary surveys. Government documents. There is no estimation here. There is only revelation. Let us begin with the people who govern you. According to the Interparliamentary Union, the global body that tracks what parliaments pay worldwide, a member of the National Assembly of Cameroon receives a basic annual salary of 3,708,000 CFA francs. That is 309,000 CFA francs per month. Tax exempt. But that is just the beginning. That is just the basic salary. The salary they admit to. The salary on the books. Housing allowances. Car allowances, for parliamentary bureau members, this reaches 60 million CFA francs per vehicle allocation. Committee allowances. Per diem for travel. Full medical coverage. A guaranteed pension. Security. Staff. The state provides the car, the fuel, the driver, the office, the phone, the internet. The basic salary is the smallest part of what they receive. 60 million CFA francs for a car allocation.
Wait, what?
For a single parliamentary bureau member. A nurse will work her entire life and never touch 60 million CFA francs. Not in 40 years of service. Not if she never sleeps. Not if she never eats. When you add the allowances, the per diems, the in-kind benefits, the security, the medical, the pension, a Cameroonian MP costs the treasury well over 1 million CFA francs per month. Perhaps more. And we do not even know the full figure, because the full breakdown is not publicly published. The books are closed. The accounts are opaque. But the little we do know is enough to make you sick. Senators. Ministers. Their salaries are not even published in the same way.
Wait, what?
The people who decide what everyone else earns refuse to tell you what they earn. That alone is a confession. If you have nothing to hide, you hide nothing. Now, the other side. According to salary data from PayLab, an international salary survey platform that aggregates real-world compensation across countries, a nurse in Cameroon earns between 71,000 and 216,000 CFA francs per month. 71,000 at the bottom. 216,000 at the top. After years of service. After specialization. After climbing every ladder the system provides. The median, the middle of the road, is approximately 92,000 CFA francs per month. 92,000. The MP's basic, not his total, just his basic, is 3 times higher. And the MP pays no tax. The nurse pays tax. The nurse pays rent. The nurse pays for transport to the hospital where she saves lives.
Wait, what?
The nurse buys her own lunch. If the MP is sick, the state flies him abroad. If the nurse is sick, she treats herself with paracetamol and hopes for the best. During the 2016 and 2017 strikes that paralyzed Cameroon's health system, strikes that the government ignored until people died, nurses and health workers demanded a salary floor of 75,000 to 95,000 CFA francs for categories 1 through 12. The economic situation. The same economic situation that apparently does not apply when the MP needs a new car. The same economic situation that does not apply when the minister needs a new office. The same economic situation that only applies when the nurse asks for enough money to feed her children. Let us do the mathematics of insult together. The MP's basic salary, again, just the basic, not the total package, is 3.5 times the median nurse's salary. But the MP does not pay tax. The nurse does. The MP gets a car and fuel. The nurse pays for the bus. The MP gets housing support. The nurse pays rent from that 92,000. So the real gap is not 3.5 times. It is 5 times. 6 times. Perhaps 10 times. We cannot calculate the true gap because they will not tell us the true numbers. One car allocation for one parliamentary bureau member is 652 months of a nurse's median salary. 54 years. A nurse would have to work from the age of 21 until the age of 75, without spending a single franc on food, rent, medicine, or transport, to earn what the state spends on one car for one MP. And that MP may have several cars in his lifetime. The nurse may have none. But this is not just about numbers. Numbers are polite. Numbers are neutral. Numbers allow them to say, these are just figures, we can debate them. Let us move beyond numbers. Let us talk about what these numbers mean in human form. Let us talk about risk. Not financial risk. Not political risk. Biological risk. Physical risk. Existential risk. The kind of risk that cannot be reversed. The kind of risk that enters your body and never leaves. A nurse in Cameroon does not work in a sealed laboratory. She works in a public health center where the sharps container has been full for 3 weeks. Where gloves are rationed. Where the needle she is holding may have been in the arm of a patient with tuberculosis. With HIV. With hepatitis B or C. With Lassa fever. With cholera. She knows this. She still works. Because if she does not, no one will. According to the World Health Organization, health workers in sub-Saharan Africa face the highest rates of needle stick injuries and occupational infection in the world.
Wait,
A
what?
single needle stick from an HIV-positive patient carries a 0.3% risk of transmission. That sounds small. It is not small when it is your life. It is not small when you know the PEP, post-exposure prophylaxis, medication is either not available or not affordable. It is not small when you have no occupational health insurance.
Wait, what?
It is not small when the state that employs you does not compensate you for the disease you caught while serving it. The politician makes decisions from a leather chair with a full stomach and a clear mind. The nurse makes decisions from a body that is failing, on a mind that is exhausted, with a heart that is still somehow trying to care. The politician debates budgets. The nurse debates whether the drug dose she is calculating is correct, while she has not eaten since morning. Whether the blood pressure she is reading is accurate, while her own head is pounding from dehydration. Whether the newborn is breathing, while her landlord is texting her about the rent she cannot pay. One mistake from a nurse, and a body goes to the morgue. One mistake from a politician, and the budget is adjusted next quarter. The nurse's mistake is personal. It is permanent. It haunts her dreams. The politician's mistake is administrative. It is theoretical. It is explained away in a press conference. And the nurse still goes home on the same bus she can barely afford. The politician still goes home in the same car the state provides. The politician risks losing an election. The nurse risks losing her lungs to tuberculosis. The politician risks losing a committee chair. The nurse risks losing her liver to hepatitis. The politician risks losing a car allowance. The nurse risks losing her life to a disease she caught while saving someone else's. And the state pays one of them generously. The other, it pays in insults. And now, the solution. The grand gesture. The act of generosity that proves the government cares. A 5% raise. For public sector workers. Including health workers. Let us calculate what that means in real money. 5% of 92,000 CFA francs. The median nurse's salary. 4,600 CFA francs. Per month. That is the raise. That is what the state thinks will fix 40 years of neglect. 4,600 CFA francs. That is not a raise. That is a rounding error. That is what the MP spends on a single lunch. That is not even what the driver spends on fuel in a day. But for the nurse, it is presented as progress. As a sign that the government is listening. As proof that the system works. The MP does not get a 5% raise. He gets a new car allocation. He gets a new housing allowance. He gets a new committee per diem. The nurse gets 4,600 CFA francs. And she is told to be grateful. To say thank you. To understand that the treasury is not a bottomless well. Let us understand the culture. In Cameroon, the political class does not receive a salary. They receive a lifestyle. The salary is just the visible part. The part they can defend. The part they can say, 309,000 is not so much, but the salary is not the point. The allowances are the point. Housing is paid. Car is paid. Fuel is paid. Driver is paid. Security is paid. Office is paid. Phone is paid. Internet is paid. Medical is paid. Travel is paid. Per diem is paid. Pension is guaranteed. The MP does not spend his salary on living. He spends his salary on whatever he wants. Because the state already pays for his living. The nurse spends her salary on everything. Because the state pays for nothing. This is not a wage gap. This is a provisioning gap. The state provisions one class fully, and leaves the other to provision themselves from a salary that was never designed to cover life. The nurse is not underpaid. She is unprovisioned. The MP is not just paid. He is maintained. He is preserved. He is ensured against every inconvenience of life, while the nurse is insured against nothing. The nurse pays for her own gloves when the hospital runs out.
Wait, what?
She pays for her own shoes when they wear out from walking ward to ward. She pays for her own lunch, if she has time for lunch. She pays for her own transport to the place where she saves lives. She pays for her own rent, her own medicine, her own pension, her own future. And she does this on 92,000 CFA francs per month. This is not new. It is not a surprise. It is not a secret. In 2016, in 2017, Cameroon's health workers went on strike. They shut down public hospitals. They left the wards empty. They did this not because they are lazy. Not because they are greedy. They did this because the alternative was to continue working for a wage that insults their sacrifice. Their demands were simple. 75,000 to 95,000 CFA francs for categories 1 through 12. That is not a luxury demand. That is not a European demand. That is a demand for enough money to pay rent and eat in the same month. To buy medicine for their own children. To take a bus to work without calculating whether the round trip will leave them with nothing for dinner. And the government's response: ignore them. Wait them out. Let patients suffer. Then blame the strikers for the suffering. This is the playbook. It has been used before. It will be used again. Because the government knows that the nurse cannot stay on strike forever. She has no savings. She has no safety net. She has no choice but to return to work, still unpaid, still unprotected, still grateful for the 4,600 CFA francs raised that she is told is a sign of good faith. The strike does not end in victory. It ends in exhaustion. It ends in the nurse accepting that the system will not change in her lifetime. It ends in her going back to the ward, because she is not the kind of person who can watch someone die and do nothing. And the system knows this. The system depends on this. It depends on her compassion being stronger than her anger. It depends on her humanity being weaponized against her. And now, the cost. Not the cost to the treasury. The cost to you, the citizen, the patient, the mother, the child. The cost of paying the MP and starving the nurse. When you pay a nurse 92,000 CFA francs per month, you do not get a nurse at her best. You get a nurse who is hungry. A nurse who is tired. A nurse who is working her second job on her day off. A nurse who is wondering how she will pay for her child's school fees while she is inserting a catheter into your father. You get a nurse whose mind is split between your life and her own survival. Brain drain is not a mystery. It is mathematics. A Cameroonian nurse can earn in the UK, in Canada, in the Gulf, in the US, what she cannot dream of here. She does not live because she hates her country. She lives because her country gives her no reason to stay. And the patients she leaves behind are treated by whoever is left, by the ones who cannot afford to leave, who are too compassionate to leave, who are trapped by circumstance and love in a system that exploits both. The cost of underpaying nurses is not measured in the treasury. It is measured in the morgue. It is measured in the mother who died in childbirth because the midwife was handling 3 deliveries at once. It is measured in the child who died of malaria because the nurse was too overwhelmed to notice the warning signs in time. It is measured in the lives that could have been saved if the people saving them had been paid enough to focus, enough to stay, enough to care without being consumed by their own desperation.
Dear Minister, dear Member of Parliament, dear Senator, I am writing to you not as an enemy. I am writing to you as a citizen who has seen the numbers, who has done the mathematics, who has watched the coin spin and knows which side always lands up. I am not asking you to be poor. I am not asking you to suffer. I am asking you to be honest. To admit that the system you built pays you generously and pays the people who keep your children alive with contempt. I am asking you to look at the 92,000 CFA francs a nurse takes home, and the 309,000 you take home as a basic, and ask yourself, what would I do if I were her? How would I feed my family? How would I pay my rent? How would I face the next patient, the next needle, the next death, with an empty stomach and a breaking heart? I am asking you to understand that the 5% raise is not a gift. It is an arithmetic joke. 4,600 CFA francs. The price of a small bag of rice. And you present it as progress. You present it as proof that you care. You ask for applause. You ask for gratitude. And when the nurse cannot thank you with sincerity, you call her ungrateful. You call her a troublemaker. You call her greedy. But greed is not asking for enough to live. Greed is taking 60 million for a car while a nurse cannot afford gloves.
Dear citizen, dear nurse, dear midwife, dear lab technician, I have received your letter. I have read your numbers. I have looked at the coin and I have chosen my side. I will not publish my full salary. I will not explain the allowances. I will not justify the car. I will not visit the hospital where you work without cameras and a prepared speech. I will not hold your hand while you die. I will not be there at 3 a.m. when the ward is short-staffed and the oxygen runs out. I will not be there when the needle stick happens, when the TB test comes back positive, when your child asks why you are crying. I will be in my office, in my car, in my house, in my next meeting, in my next budget debate, in my next trip abroad. And when you ask again for a living wage, I will say the treasury is empty. I will say the economy is fragile. I will say you must be patient. I will say you must be patriotic. I will say you must understand that the nation cannot afford to pay you more. And I will believe it. Because the nation I know, the nation that pays me, that maintains me, that ensures me, that nation cannot afford to pay you more. The nation you know, the nation that depends on you, that bleeds through you, that survives because of you, that nation can afford nothing else. This is not a film about hatred. It is a film about mathematics. About value. About who a nation chooses to protect and who it chooses to discard. Cameroon is a nation of 28 million people. It is not a poor nation. It is a nation with poor priorities. And the priority of any nation is measured in the payslip of the people who hold its future in their hands. The midwife who delivers the next generation. The nurse who keeps the last generation alive. The technician who diagnoses the disease before it becomes a disaster. These are the people who deserve the leather chairs. These are the people who deserve the cars. These are the people who deserve the 60 million. And until they receive it, the coin will keep spinning. And it will keep landing on the same side. This is Cameroon. The payslip war. And you are now a witness. You cannot say you did not know,